Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the amazing Chris Stroum. Chris, how you doing today?
Great. How about you?
I am doing awesome. Thank you for being available to do this. I know that things are very hectic right now, so the fact that you're taking time out to come and hang out with me for a little bit is awesome. Now,
Was
before we talk about why you're here, Chris, I would like the people that don't know you to get to know you a little bit. Chris is a horror writer from Las Vegas, best known for his work on Scream fan scripts, but also working towards breaking out into the filmmaking scene. When not writing, he watches as many movies as he possibly can, collects Transformers, and enjoys being around his family, friends, and dog. Now, dog would be included in family, but we had to throw that out there.
oh,
Um,
absolutely.
so, for the people that don't know, some of your Scream fans, Chris, what can you tell us a little bit about those?
So I write a lot of I started out when I was younger, really young actually, about I want to say 18 when I started writing Scream fan scripts, and I mean I didn't expect anything to come of it. I had just gotten up some really bad times in my life, and just it kind of exploded. It's been a really weird and crazy ride, and it's slowly coming to its end. I'm
Right.
working on a final script in a 7-part series. Actually, I've been working on since 2012 ish. So
Yeah.
it's really been a fun ride, and I mean everyone's been great. The fandom's amazing. I got a lot of great feedback from people within the fandom and within the Scream franchise itself. So it's been a really weird few years.
Well, and the good part about this, guys, is you can follow along with all this by following Chris at all his social media links, which are down here in the description. So, obviously, being part of the Scream universe, with your fan films, that's an amazing feeling. And what gave you the inspiration to want to start doing Scream fan films?
If you want me to be honest, the idea came from the very first fan film I had in my mind was just something I was gonna make with my friends.
Mhm.
And Jono, I don't know if anyone remembers way back, screamtrilogy.net, way back in the day. He wrote his first fan script for Scream, and he's still a good friend of mine, actually. I've talked to him recently, and he's and I was just like, wow, you can write this like that, and I just started writing and never stopped, I guess.
Right. No, and that's awesome, man, because Scream obviously very, very huge, very, very influential in the horror genre. Whether you love it or hate it, you can't deny the impact that
Oh,
Scream has had on the genre. Um,
absolutely.
so we know that you said you wanted to, break into the filmmaking scene. Have you written any original scripts?
I have, but I mostly, I realized original's a little harder for me. It's a very hard fine line to figure out your own ideas versus your own ideas versus someone else's. So I'm
Right.
also trying to do a little bit of my fan script writing, but as or actual screenplays. I can't really talk about what it is, but I'm talking to a
Sure.
producer right now, actually about what could be a high profile remake. So you never know. I've also talked to a couple other people about projects. So it's like, once you might see something from me from a different franchise somewhere along the line.
That's
And I'm
awesome,
kind of
man, and I
excited
can't
about the
wait.
possibilities.
No, and I'm pulling for you, man. I know that it can be once you start getting into the bigger franchises and things like that, it can be very tricky with what they're willing to let you do. So I wish you the best of luck, and you guys can follow along with what he has going on by following him on social media at the links below. Now, in order, Chris, for you to write screen fan films or to even write your own original horror had to start for you somewhere, my friend.
Oh,
So I would
absolutely.
like to go back to the past and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And Chris, the first horror movie you watched was
Poltergeist.
what an
It's-
amazing, amazing film. To this day, I would say top five scariest PG horror films of all time. So, do you remember about how old you were the first time you had seen it?
yeah, I do actually, because my parents tell me every time I was like about 4 or 5 years old, believe it or not. And I knew the minute I saw that movie, I liked being scared. I'm one
Mhm.
of those really crazy people that likes that adrenaline rush you get after you're screaming your head off, running behind your parents' couch, wondering what the heck I just watched.
And
Um,
what's funny about that is you know what, I would never shit on anybody's lifestyle. That's not who I am. But me personally, I don't use drugs. It's just not something that
oh,
I
that's good.
condone. It's not something I run with. Horror movies are my drugs. That's my addiction. And when
Me
you get
too.
that first one, that first jump scare, you get that high, and then you're constantly chasing that dragon, trying to get that feeling again. So I totally know where you're coming from. Did you say that you watched it with your parents?
Yeah, so it's funny. The story is that my parents were watching it, and I decided to sneak down from my bedroom and watch it with the big kids and go and sneak behind the couch. I have so I have a very clear memory of that moment, mostly because I think that it just absolutely terrified me. Like the
Yeah.
idea, my parents think that I thought it was they were playing hide and seek. Oh, it's not really scary. I'm like, I absolutely knew exactly what was going on. That
Right.
big giant monster in the hallway that ended up being Kane in the second one. I watched I had to watch that when I was about like 7 or 8 because I was like I had to have more of this movie,
Hmm.
and it was just
And
like that moment of oh
I love that first trilogy. Poltergeist 1, 2, and 3. I think it's a fantastic trilogy, and I'm one of the few. We'll talk about it in a minute, but I'm a little different when it comes to that trilogy. So, we talked a little bit about the skull in the hallway, but do you remember which scene it was that affected you the most?
that's a good question. I think the scene that affected me the most, and it's very very subtle, which is what makes it interesting for me. And I love subtle horror though. I've always liked that. I like
Sure.
like the Haunting of Hill House, things like that. They're just very quintessential. Is the first moment that we realize she's in the TV. When you slowly hear the voice coming out of the TV, I just remember thinking, what the heck is that? Her parents from a realization their daughter's on another level of playing field, and now what's next?
Right. Yeah. When you go into that different, like I said, you're in a different dimension. I can hear you, but I can't see you. Mom, Dad, like, and you see the white noise, the static going on the
Yes.
TV. Like such. Oh my gosh, I completely agree. It's such an amazing, amazing moment in the film, and like you said, very small. When you talk about the grand scheme of all the things that happen in the film, that's probably one of the smaller moments, but it's still very, very effective. And I completely agree with you. Um, so I brought it up a little bit a second ago, but obviously Poltergeist is part of a trilogy and now a quadrilogy now that you have the remake. But which one of the films is your favorite in the Poltergeist franchise?
It's so hard. I love them all. I even really kind of like the remake a little bit. I know a lot of people hate on it, but I
Mhm.
do enjoy that I try to do something new and different with it.
Yeah.
But I think that my full-time favorite's still the original. I mean, there's just nothing like it. But the second is a very close second. Because I mean,
Right.
you can't not love Reverend Kane. That is one of the greatest all-time villains of all
Oh,
time.
easily. Easily one of the best villains of all time.
And I think it's
Um,
great because you have two different portrayals of it, but they're both so dang good, it doesn't really matter.
right. See, and where I'm different, one is probably my least favorite, not counting the
Really?
remake. Yep. And look, one is fantastic.
Oh,
I
I agree.
love Poltergeist. But Poltergeist 3 does it for me, man. I
Oh, it's a
love
great
that film.
movie.
Like it's terrifying, it's funny. There's just so much about Poltergeist 3. Obviously, you got the heartbreaking ending because Heather O'Rourke unfortunately passed away during filming, so they had to throw an ending onto the film. So the ending's dog shit. I get that, but um there's just something about that movie that is so special to me. So that's my favorite. I think Poltergeist 2 is probably the scariest of the
Oh
bunch.
yeah, absolutely.
Reverend Kane is just demonic in that film. But one, we wouldn't have a lot of the horror movies we have today without Poltergeist, without
Of
Toby Hooper and
course.
Steven Spielberg coming together to create that. So, like I said, for me, it's more like instead of being like my 3, 2, 1, it's more like 1A, 1B, 1C. Like I love all three of them so much. And
I
um,
agree with that completely.
I was going to ask you this later, but since you touched on it a little bit, I'll go now. The Poltergeist remake. You said you're not a huge fan, but you don't hate it. I was going to ask you what your thoughts were on it. So I agree with you. I'm so happy the little girl's name isn't Carol Ann. I felt
Me
like that
too.
would have been very disrespectful to Heather O'Rourke. There's only going to be one Carol Ann ever,
Ever.
and so that's one thing that I was very very happy about. But I'm with you. I don't hate the remake. I don't love the remake. It's just one of those movies that I watched it. I had fun with it. I wish they would have been a little more original with some of their ideas. But some of
Thank
the
you. That's
original,
my problem too.
yeah, some of the original ideas they had were great. Like the drill in the closet. Like
Oh
that
my
scene was
god,
scary,
yes.
man. Like
It was terrifying.
they had potential with that film and they squandered it by trying to redo scenes from the OG, in my opinion.
Exactly.
So,
In my
we
opinion,
know,
they should have made a sequel. They should have honestly just made a sequel and expanded on it. Like one of the ideas I once had was I'm like, no one's ever touched upon this, and I find it interesting. And they could have in this movie so easily was the fact that there was another project that they were working on that they never canceled in the original, So I'm
Mhm.
like, why didn't they just say, hey, this is from the other project that they're working on?
Or, Robbie, maybe he moves into that project when he's older. So you
Exactly.
can have that legacy character continue the story, but I get it's a sensitive subject because of what happened to Carol Ann, what
Of
happened to Heather
course.
O'Rourke, and that's something that you don't want to. Have you seen the Shudder original Cursed films?
I have, yes, I have. Very great movie.
Yeah, when you're talking about, when they're on there and they're talking about Poltergeist and they're talking about all the things that have happened in the world of Poltergeist and how it's a cursed film, and you get these people that are talking about it, and I can see why they wouldn't want to bring back some of the the legacy characters for another film, just because of the disrespect that it could bring to the names of Heather O'Rourke and to the other sister. Where are they now? You're going to obviously have to touch on that because they're such big parts of the OG. But we talked a little bit about which scene affected you the most from Poltergeist. But what would you say your favorite scene is from the
The
film?
tree. The tree. You can't get more classic than a tree trying to eat a little kid.
Right.
I was just like, I watched it in theaters last year around Halloween, and I swear that scene still made me want to piss my pants. Because I
Yeah.
was just thinking about, and it's funny because my parents actually lived around the street from where they filmed the movie. So I always imagine, I'm like, thank God I wasn't alive yet. Because I would rip past that tree every single day and just be
Right.
like, nope, 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 nuh-uh.
It's funny how that works too, because that's something that you never would think to be scared of.
It is. No, absolutely not.
Of all the things on this planet to be absolutely scared of, a tree is not one that would come to our minds right away. So I love it when you can take that type of fear and instill it in people. It's a great moment in the film. Now,
It is.
something else I wanted to bring up real quick. Obviously, I had to film this episode off location today, guys. I don't know if you can tell with me seeing my breath,
Yep.
but I'm filming somewhere where I don't normally film. So my little buddy Ghostface, he couldn't make it here today, but I'm gonna let this Ghostface take it away.
What's your favorite scary movie?
So my favorite classic horror movie, Frankenstein. Like Frankenstein, absolutely one of the best movies of all time, in my opinion. Modern though, Hereditary. Literally one of the best movies I've ever seen in my entire life. Still scares the living crap out of me to this day.
One of the best theater experiences I've ever had,
Me too.
while being one of the worst theater experiences I ever had.
Really?
Yes, Ashley and I went and seen this on opening night. And the scene, I'm not gonna say it, but the scene, you felt the whole theater go, you know.
Oh yes. Oh.
But there was also a scene where or there was a point while we're sitting there where there was these douchebags behind us that kept going.
Oh, I hate that.
And I literally got to the point where I turned around, I was like, dude, shut the fuck up, or I'm gonna rip your fucking tongue out. Like, I'm an old man now, man. Like, I don't get very many chances to take my wife out on a date. So when I get the chance to take my wife out on a date, don't be a douchebag and ruin it for me. Like, I'm that get off my lawn old guy now. So
Oh, me too. It's ridiculous. It's like people in the audience today are just like so sad. I still remember when I went to go see, I think it was the When a Stranger Calls remake. And this was years ago. My mom and I went to see that, and these kids out in the back just could not shut up screaming for 5 seconds. And I still remember to the day, I'm like, I'm not gonna be that guy.
Oh, dude, I would be that guy. I'm that guy. Like, when people do that shit, like when you go see a horror movie and people are screaming on purpose every time a jump scare happens, or they keep talking continuously,
Yes.
I'm literally the guy that will get up, walk over, sit right next to him, and stare at him and be like, well, what you got to say is super important that obviously all of us need to hear it. So go ahead, tell me what you got to say, because I want to hear it, and then we'll get back to watching this fucking movie that I just paid $20 to watch. So like, that's me. Like, I am that guy. Like, I know it makes me sound like a dick, you guys.
Oh no,
so
I would
sorry,
do the same thing if I had the guts, honestly.
It's just like I said, man, like, I've been with my wife since high school. We've been married since high school, and I'm 37 years old now, and I like to be able to take my wife out and make her feel important. And it really irritates me when people try to put a stick in my spokes while I'm riding my bike down the street, man. Because if I flip over those handlebars and I ruin the date for my wife, it's not going to be pretty.
I think the only time I ever did something like that, I was watching Avengers Endgame. And my mom was watching it for the first time. And these guys were just so loud. I think I turned to them and said, do you go to the movies just to talk?
Yeah.
It's the Avengers, man.
And it's just like you're literally wasting your money. Like, what are you doing? Like, you spent the money to come here. Be quiet and enjoy yourself, man.
Exactly. And
So-
what drives me nuts is I went to go see, God, what was the latest movie that just came out? Infinity Pool. Great
Mhm.
movie. But there were two people behind us that like talked throughout. I know actually beside us. We were at the back of the theater talking throughout the whole movie, and all I could think was, how are you following this movie?
Right.
It's half dialogue.
Yes. Yes. Don't say anything because I haven't seen it, and this is such a fresh movie. I don't want it spoiled, but I'm very
it's
excited
such
to
a
watch
great
it.
movie.
Mia Goth is a goddess, so I'm very excited to see it. So
she's amazing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, she's amazing. Like, I mean, I've known she was a star since A Cure for Wellness. I went to see that movie, and I was
Yeah.
like, who is this chick? She's gonna be the biggest star to shine in a little bit.
I'm really hoping that we can get her playing young Mrs. Voorhees on the Crystal Lake prequel.
Yes.
I think that would be so dope, man. I
I
think
was
she could
coming
be a
out of that movie
perfect Mrs.
saying
Voorhees.
it.
Yes.
I want to see her play Harley Quinn too.
Yep. That's another one I could really see her crushing. So, Chris, I've had an amazing time talking to you about your first horror movie, your favorite horror movie, and some of the things that you're working on. But before I let you go, I always end these with the same question. We're going to bounce back to Poltergeist, and what we're going to do here is rank this on a skull count. Now, Chris, we're not ranking this on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. What we're doing here is strictly ranking this movie on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle.
Okay.
Chris, what would your ranking of Poltergeist be?
I think a 4 only because the things scarred me more as a kid. I think that shoot, that's a story for another time. But oh my god, I have a story from that.
Well, I mean, the thing is, to this day, I don't think I'm as big on the thing as a lot of other people are. I think it's a fantastic movie. I think it's great. I think it has one of the most underrated scores of all time of any film.
Absolutely.
I do think it's scary. And what I will also say is it's in my personal top 3 best practical effect films of all time, right next to An American Werewolf in London and the OG Nightmare on Elm Street. Those are my 3 absolute favorite practical effect films of all time. When you're doing things like in A Nightmare on Elm Street, you have a person going up a wall in a rotating room and a bed with blood going everywhere. It's amazing, and they had a low budget. Freddy Krueger's in that movie for 7 minutes because they didn't have the budget to keep doing his makeup. That's why when you see Johnny Depp's waterbed kill, you don't see Freddy do it.
Nope.
When you see Tina getting dragged up the wall, you don't see Freddy do it. When you
That
see
makes
Rod,
so much sense.
yeah, when you see Rod get hanged in the jail cell,
wow.
You don't see Freddy do it. Their budget was so small they couldn't afford a makeup team to continuously put the makeup on to make it look the same. So that's why a lot of times when you're seeing Freddy, he's in the shadows, he's in the dark, or it's not him doing the kills. And that's genius. And you never think about that until someone. Yeah. So that's one of those things where we forget that movie was a low budget movie. And then American Werewolf in London has the best, absolute hands down best werewolf transformation scene of any movie ever. And the thing, look at the dog, the head, the
defibrillator.
Yeah, the defibrillator. Even though I don't know why you would defibrillate someone's stomach, you should have
That's
defibrillated.
me.
But I mean, it is what it is. So, man, again, I do want to thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with us. And I want to remind everybody, all of Chris's social media links are down here in the description. So make sure you're giving him a follow on all his social media accounts so you can stay up to date on everything he has coming up in the future. Now, Chris, please don't go anywhere, my friend. I got a couple more questions for you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.